You checked your outfit in the mirror this morning, grabbed your keys, and headed out the door. Simple, right? But what if I told you that right now, somewhere in the world, someone is getting arrested for wearing the exact same thing you have on? For hundreds of years, governments have spent countless hours, taxpayer money, and legislative sessions obsessing over one critical question: what you're allowed to wear. From outlawing specific shoe types to criminalizing hair accessories, lawmakers have turned your wardrobe into a legal minefield. We've dug through centuries of legal archives, municipal codes, and bizarre ordinances to bring you 50 of the most unbelievable, absolutely ridiculous fashion laws ever created. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at your closet the same way again. Let's dive in. Point 1. Blythe, California. In the small desert town of Blythe, California, there's a law that says you cannot wear cowboy boots unless you personally own at least 2 cows. Yes, you read that right. This isn't some dusty old forgotten rule, it's actually in the municipal code. The logic is beautifully absurd. You can't just enjoy the Western aesthetic. You must be an active, verified participant in the cattle economy. Imagine the scenario. A fashion-forward tourist strolls into town, wearing their brand new Lucchese boots, and a local sheriff pulls them over. "Sir, I'm going to need to see your boot license and proof of livestock ownership." It's gatekeeping elevated to an entirely new agricultural level. In Blythe, your footwear isn't a fashion statement, it's a certificate of bovine credentials. 2. Carmel by the Sea, California. Avocome to Carmel by the Sea, where if you're a woman who wants to wear high heels measuring more than 2 inches in height, with a base of less than 1 square inch, you technically need a permit. Before you think this is pure misogyny, the backstory is actually brilliant legal maneuvering. The city passed this ordinance in the 1920s specifically to protect itself from personal injury lawsuits. The town's sidewalks are notoriously uneven, warped by massive tree roots, creating an ankle-twisting obstacle course. Here's the best part. You can walk into City Hall right now and get your lifetime high heel permit, completely free of charge. It's a piece of paper that essentially says, "I acknowledge that these sidewalks are a hazard, and I'm wearing death stilts anyway." Pure bureaucratic genius wrapped in vintage sexism. 3. Flint, Michigan. In 2008, the city of Flint, Michigan decided it had bigger problems than its water crisis, and that problem was teenage fashion. The city council passed an ordinance, making it illegal to wear your pants low enough to expose your underwear or buttocks. Violators didn't just face fines, they could actually go to jail. Let that sink in. A city with crumbling infrastructure, economic collapse, and genuine public safety issues decided that the most pressing legislative priority was the structural integrity of teenage waistbands. Picture the city council meeting. Forget fixing the roads. Ladies and gentlemen, today we declare war on sagging jeans. Somewhere, a teenager's belt became the thin line between freedom and incarceration. 4. French Navy, 1858. Here's a fashion law with actual logic behind it. In 1858, the French Navy issued a regulation stating that the official sailor's shirt must have exactly 21 white stripes and 20 or 21 navy blue ones. But this wasn't about looking chic on the Riviera. This was survival gear. The bold, contrasting stripes made it significantly easier to spot a sailor who had fallen overboard in choppy ocean waters. So next time you see someone rocking a striped Breton shirt at a coffee shop, remember that's not just Parisian fashion. That's 19th century maritime emergency wear, approved by the ghost of Napoleon himself. Function over fashion, wrapped in accidental style. 5. Thailand. In Thailand, it is strictly illegal to leave your home without wearing underwear. This law immediately raises far more questions than it answers. The most obvious question: how in the world would anyone enforce this? Is there an underwear checkpoint? Do police have X-ray vision? Is going commando really such a threat to public order that it requires official legislation? You have to wonder what specific, traumatic incident prompted a room full of lawmakers to sit down together and draft official government policy about what people wear under their clothes. Was there a national emergency, a crisis, a horrifying commando-related catastrophe? The potential backstory is almost more fascinating than the law itself. 6. Ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, purple wasn't just a color, it was a felony. Only the emperor could wear all purple clothing, thanks to sumptuary laws that literally treated color as contraband. Why? The purple dye came from thousands of crushed murex sea snails, making it more valuable than gold. Wearing it without imperial permission could get you executed. Not fined, not jailed, executed. Forget modern streetwear clout. This was the original deadly drip. Your fit could literally be to die for, except in this case. It wasn't a figure of speech. One unauthorized purple toga could be your last fashion statement. 7. Denver, color d'oin. Denver, Colorado. An old municipal ordinance prohibited women from wearing what it called grotesque hats in public. Here's the problem. The law never actually defined what grotesque meant. That determination was left entirely to law enforcement discretion. That means a police officer could theoretically fine you for a feather, a ribbon, or an especially aggressive fascinator. Your Sunday church hat, potential misdemeanor. That vintage pillbox number depends on Officer Johnson's mood. Fashion wasn't just personal expression, it was a criminal code violation, with a dress code enforced by subjective taste. 8. Chicago, 1900 in early 20th century Chicago. Women were banned from wearing patent leather shoes in public. The reasoning? Officials genuinely feared that the shiny, reflective surface might mirror their undergarments. This isn't fashion policing, this is physics-based morality legislation. Somewhere, some man stared at the floor way too long, had an existential crisis over a toe-level reflection, and successfully lobbied for a city-wide crackdown on glossy footwear. It's the only time in history that a polished shoe was considered a legitimate threat to public decency. Not violence, not crime. Reflective leather. 9. Kuala Lumpur, Malaysian. Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It's illegal for men to wear traditional women's clothing in public, especially outfits with bare shoulders. But here's where it gets oddly specific. Dresses are actually fine as long as they have sleeves. The result? A potential wave of men confidently strutting around in floral gowns with elbow-length lace cuffs. Technically legal, emotionally confusing, fashionably questionable. It's a law that simultaneously restricts and creates the most specific loophole. In cross-dressing history. 10. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabian government once banned the sale of Barbie dolls, calling them a threat to Islamic values and accusing them of promoting Western ideals of beauty and immodesty. Shops were raided. Dolls were confiscated. Parents were warned. This wasn't just about plastic limbs, it was a full-blown culture war in a pink box somewhere. A little girl's tea party was interrupted by a morality crackdown. Turns out even molded vinyl with impossible proportions can be seen as ideological rebellion. Barbie, banned in the kingdom. Unstoppable everywhere else. 11. United Kingdom Parliament. In the United Kingdom, a 700-year-old law strictly forbids members of Parliament from wearing a suit of armor inside the Houses of Parliament. Dating back to 1313. This was designed to stop nobles from settling legislative debates with broadswords. But imagine the absolute power move. Forget a fiery speech, just show up for a vote on tax policy in full plate mail, slowly tapping your steel gauntlet on the desk. This law effectively prevents parliamentary debates from escalating into armored jousting, tournaments down the center aisle. And yes, it's still on the books today. Modern politicians will have to intimidate each other the old-fashioned way, with passive-aggressive remarks. 12. South Korea, 1970. During the 1970s, South Korea was under authoritarian rule, which led to one of history's most bizarre fashion enforcement campaigns. Police officers were literally armed with rulers and roamed the streets measuring women's miniskirts. If a skirt was more than 20 centimeters above the knee, the woman could be fined or even arrested. This was a literal fashion police state, where government resources were dedicated to enforcing hemline regulations. Forget fighting actual crime. The real threat to society? An extra inch of exposed thigh. Officers with tape measures became the ultimate fashion critics with arrest powers. 13. Alabama. An old ordinance in Alabama makes it illegal to wear a fake mustache in a church if it causes laughter. This law has the fingerprints of a single legendary prankster all over it. You can just picture this mustache-wielding menace showing up every Sunday, with a different disguise, a handlebar one week, a Fu Manchu the next, sending the congregation into hysterics and completely derailing the sermon. Eventually, the town council had no choice but to draft legislation specifically targeting this one man's reign of comedic terror. It's not about safety. It's not about decency. It's about one guy who absolutely refused to let people worship in peace. 14. Paris, France. For over 100 years, it was technically illegal for women in Paris to wear trousers. Enacted in 1800 to keep women out of male-dominated jobs, the law required them to get a police permit to dress like a man. While it was largely ignored for decades, it remained on the books until it was officially revoked in 2013. To put that in perspective, this Napoleonic-era rule was still technically active. The same year the world was collectively singing Let It Go from Frozen. For centuries, Parisian women in jeans were technically denim rebels. 15. Russia, 2014. In 2014, Russia passed a law banning gay propaganda, which extended to fashion in absurd ways. One retailer was fined for selling t-shirts with rainbows, another for displaying mannequins wearing pink bow ties. The law never explicitly banned colors, but anything vaguely flamboyant became fair game for enforcement. It created a bizarre reality where dressing too cheerfully could land you on the wrong side of the state. In Putin's Russia, even your wardrobe was expected to look properly miserable. Rainbow stripes, potential criminal evidence. 16. Elizabethan England during Queen Elizabeth I's reign. Sumptuary laws dictated exactly what you could wear based on your social class. Commoners were forbidden from wearing luxurious materials like silk, velvet, or certain furs. These were strictly reserved for nobility. The goal? To make class divisions instantly visible. It makes you appreciate the modern freedom to wear a velour tracksuit to the grocery store without fear of being arrested by the fashion aristocracy. Your juicy couture sweatsuit would have been a one-way ticket to the stocks. 17. United States. 1/8 to Ost classic black and white striped prison uniform wasn't a random design choice. It was a calculated strategy of humiliation and control, first implemented in the 1820s. The chaotic stripes were meant to strip inmates of their individuality. More importantly, the pattern made escapees instantly recognizable against any background, turning every citizen into a potential spotter. It was clothing designed to be a psychological cage. The uniform wasn't just what you wore in prison, it was a piece of the punishment itself. 18. Fargo, North Dakota. Fargo, North Dakota. It is illegal to dance while wearing a hat, not just in church, anywhere. The law also makes it illegal to fall asleep with your hat on. You have to wonder what kind of hat-related trauma the city of Fargo collectively endured to pass such a specific rule. Was there a dancing hat epidemic? Did someone's fedora cause a catastrophic tango incident? We may never know. In Fargo, being footloose is perfectly fine, but being fedora-loose? That's a felony. 19. Dublin, Georgia. Dublin, Georgia. A city ordinance makes it illegal to appear in public wearing a mask, hood, or any device that hides a portion of your face. On the surface, it sounds like another weird local law, maybe a war on Halloween, but its origins are dead serious. The law was passed in the 19th century as a direct tool to combat the Ku Klux Klan, making it illegal for them to march while concealing their identities. It's a fascinating and rare case of fashion policing that actually targeted real villains instead of, say, frightening bonnets or exposed collarbons. 20. Wildwood, New Jersey. Seaside resort town of Wildwood, New Jersey, took a stand against fashion in 2013. They passed an ordinance officially banning sagging pants on their famous boardwalk. The dress code forbids trousers that sag more than 3 inches below the hips, exposing either skin or underwear. The official town slogan is "Watch the tram car, please," but unofficially, it's become "And for the love of God, pull up your pants." It's a bold attempt to legislate the vibe of a vacation spot, one belt at a time. 21. Barbados, Jamaica. St. Lucia. Packing for a Caribbean vacation? Leave your trendy camouflage print shorts at home. In several nations including Barbados, Jamaica, and St. Lucia, It is illegal for any civilian to wear camouflage clothing. This isn't an aesthetic judgment, it's a matter of national security. The laws are in place to prevent civilians from being mistaken for soldiers and to stop criminals from impersonating military personnel. So while you think you're making a bold fashion statement, the local government sees you as a potential threat. Your cargo pants could accidentally be considered an act of subversion. 22. Los Angeles, 1943. In the 1940s, the zoot suit was more than just a fashion trend for young Mexican-American men in Los Angeles. It was a symbol of cultural pride and defiance. These outfits with their high-waisted, wide-legged trousers and long coats with padded shoulders used an extravagant amount of fabric, which was seen as unpatriotic during wartime rationing. This tension exploded in the 1943 zoot suit riots, where American servicemen roamed the city brutally attacking any young man wearing one, often stripping them of their clothes in the street. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can wear is something that gives you a voice. 3. Reunion Island. In Reunion, a French island territory, there was once a proposed rule banning excessively loud flip-flops in government buildings. The reason? Disruption of administrative focus. Imagine a tax office where sandals slap echoes like a metronome of chaos, and your choice of footwear is classified as a workplace hazard. Somewhere, a civil servant cracked under the psychological toll of flip-flop percussion and demanded legal action. That's not fashion. That's acoustic terrorism. 24. Scotland, 1746. Following the Jacobite Rebellion in 1745, the British government enacted the Dress Act of 1746. This law didn't just ban weapons in the Scottish Highlands, it banned the very clothes of its people. The act made it illegal for any man or boy to wear tartan, a kilt, or any other element of traditional Highland dress. The punishment was severe: 6 months in prison for a first offense, and 7 years of transportation to a penal colony for a second. It was a calculated act of cultural warfare, a government so afraid of rebellion that it declared war on a piece of fabric. 5. South Korean military. In the South Korean military, there are official regulations about the width of soldiers' sideburns. They must be no longer than 3 centimeters and neatly trimmed at a 90-degree angle. This isn't about hygiene, it's about discipline. Hair becomes a metaphor for order, and a rogue tuft can apparently destabilize an entire unit. It's the only army where a pair of scissors is as feared as a firearm. Forget combat readiness. Focus on cheekbone geometry. 6. Malaysia. Your choice of t-shirt color could make you an enemy of the state. When a massive pro-democracy movement adopted the color yellow, the government responded by officially banning yellow clothing linked to the group. Suddenly, a primary color became a weaponized symbol. That bright, cheerful shirt in your closet, potential sedition. Choosing what to wear in the morning became a high-stakes political gamble. That innocent smiley-faced t-shirt you own could be interpreted as a silent, fabric-based act of rebellion. 7. North Korea. For decades, blue jeans have been seen as a potent symbol of Western culture and capitalist freedom, which is precisely why North Korea has waged a long-standing war against them. The state has periodically banned blue jeans, along with other Western styles like skinny jeans, as forms of anti-socialist and decadent behavior. It's not about the denim, it's about the ideology woven into the fabric. The regime is so focused on cultural purity that it has an official, hostile stance on America's favorite pants. 8. United States, 1917. Let's go back to the early 20th century, a time of intense anxiety about public swimwear. A 1917 ordinance in the United States required that men's bathing suits must include a skirt, effect, a little flap of fabric at the front to obscure the male form. Some beaches even had police officers with measuring tapes to ensure that bathing suits weren't too revealing. The image of a tough, mustachioed man from the 1910s being forced to wear a frilly little swim skirt to the beach is a glorious piece of fashion history. 9. Iran. And Iran, the government is so invested in personal grooming that it periodically publishes its own official haircut lookbook. The state has declared war on decadent Western styles like ponytails, mullets, and anything involving too much hair gel, distributing posters to barbershops illustrating the government-approved options. It's the ultimate form of helicopter parenting, where the state itself threatens to ground you for your hairstyle. Forget freedom of speech. This is a battle over the fundamental human right to have a bad hair day. 30. Barcelona. Spain's city of Barcelona got so fed up with tourists treating its historic streets like an extension of the beach that they passed a law in 2011 banning bikinis and shirtless strolls away from the seaside. Violators can be fined on the spot. Picture this: a sunburnt tourist in flip-flops, still dripping from the sea, trying to order gelato while a cop writes him up for public torso exposure. In Barcelona, shirts aren't just polite, they're mandatory armor against municipal justice. 31. Great Britain. 1795. Imagine a government so desperate for cash that it decides to tax hair powder. That's exactly what Great Britain did in 1795 to help fund its war against France. The powdered wigs worn by the aristocracy required huge amounts of scented powder, making them a perfect target for the taxman. Suddenly, having that fashionable, ghostly white coiffure came with an annual fee. The result? The tax almost single-handedly destroyed the trend as men switched to unpowdered, natural hairstyles to avoid paying. It was the ultimate style killer of fiscal policy that ended a fashion era. 32. France. 13th century. In 13th century France, striped clothing was considered so scandalous it was reserved for society's outcasts, executioners, prostitutes, and clowns. The stripes symbolized chaos, disorder, and moral failure. Wearing them as a regular person could get you excommunicated. That trendy striped top you wore to brunch last Sunday. In medieval Europe, it would have screamed, "I hang people for a living." 33. Shreveport, Louisiana. In 2012, the City Council of Shreveport, Louisiana, decided it had seen one too many people shopping for milk in their fuzzy pajama pants. They passed an ordinance making it illegal to wear pajama bottoms in public. The law specifically targeted pants that were obviously designed for sleeping. Forget potholes or urban planning. The city declared war on cozy flannel. In Shreveport, you can rob a bank in jeans, but God help you if you grab Pop-Tarts and fleece. Comfort is criminal. 34. Victorian England. In Victorian England, grieving was a fashion statement with a terrifyingly strict rule book. The period of mourning was dictated by law and custom, and your outfit broadcast your exact level of sorrow. For a widow, the process could last 2.5 years, starting with full mourning in dull black fabrics with no shine, like crepe, and slowly transitioning to second mourning, where she could introduce fabrics like silk and a little bit of gray or lavender. It was a system so rigid, so complex, that it created an entire industry just to keep people from making a social faux pas while grieving. 35. Massachusetts. 17th century. Long before hipsters and lumberjacks made beards cool, the Puritans of 17th century Massachusetts declared war on them. In their view, long hair and beards were symbols of vanity, worldliness, and a potential slide into savagery. While not a statewide ban, many communities enacted their own strict codes, sometimes fining men for excessive facial hair. They looked at a well-groomed beard not as a mark of style, but as a fast track to damnation. One can only imagine what they would have thought of a modern barbershop with its beard oils and artisanal waxes. 36. United States. Early 1900s. In the early 1900s, going to the theater was a battle, not the one on screen, but the one against the hat of the person sitting in front of you. Women's hats were enormous, elaborate creations, often adorned with feathers, ribbons, and sometimes entire fake birds. They were a public menace, completely blocking the view. In response, cities across America began passing hat ordinances, making it illegal to wear large hats in theaters and cinemas. It was one of the first great victories for cinematic visibility, a law that said, "Your hat is not the main character." 37. Europe and America. 18th–19th century. As for centuries, men got deep, glorious pockets. Women got stitched lies. Their clothes either had fake slits or required hidden, tied-on pouches under layers of fabric. Why? Because real pockets meant independence, the power to carry money, keys, or secrets. Denying them was fashion's most passive-aggressive power move. Forget glass ceilings. Women had to fight for fabric cavities. 38. France. Court of Louis XIV at the court of King Louis XIV. Fashion wasn't just important, it was a blood sport. And the king was the ultimate referee. He instituted thousands of micro-rules to keep everyone in their place. One of the most absurd was about buttons. While courtiers could adorn their jacket sleeves with as many expensive buttons as they liked, only the king was permitted to have functional buttonholes to go with them. It was a tiny, brilliant detail that constantly reminded everyone who was in charge. It screamed, "I'm the king, and my sleeves are fully functional." You peasants. 39. England, 1463. In 15th century England, the government had to step in to silence a particularly annoying fashion trend. Young, fashionable men known as dandies had taken to attaching little bells to their shoes, knees, or belts, announcing their presence with a constant, irritating jingle. The Parliament of 1463 got so fed up that they passed a law banning these jangling accessories. For anyone below the rank of nobleman. It was an official ban on being that guy, a legislative attempt to mute the most obnoxious people in the room. 40. Rwanda. A government crackdown on indecent clothing led to women being arrested for wearing miniskirts. The campaign was justified as preserving cultural values, but it sparked national outrage. Photos of women being forcibly detained for showing knees went viral, prompting backlash both domestically and internationally. It was a case where law enforcement became literal fashion police, measuring morality one hemline at a time. Turns out, in some places, showing skin is still treated like showing intent to revolt. 41. Geneva. 16th century. During the Protestant Reformation in 16th century Geneva, the moral reformer John Calvin turned the city into a religious republic. With incredibly strict rules, fashion was a primary target. He banned lace, jewelry, and any clothing deemed too ostentatious. Colors were heavily restricted, with bright hues being a sign of vanity. It was a city-wide dress code enforced by the church, where the ultimate fashion sin wasn't a clashing pattern but simply enjoying your outfit too much. Geneva became the beige capital of the world. 42. Tempe, Arizona. In the city of Tempe, Arizona, a law from the pioneer days made it illegal for women to wear pants, like the similar rule in Paris. It was a holdover from a bygone era of gendered dress codes. The funny part, this law remained on the books, completely forgotten, until a group of female city employees rediscovered it in the 1970s. They playfully threatened a pantsuit uprising, until the council repealed the dusty statute. It wasn't a protest, it was a tailored polyester revolution. 43. United States. Early 1900s. In the early 20th century, the United States was gripped by a moral panic over the hobble skirt. This fashion trend involved a long, narrow skirt that was so tight at the ankles it forced women to take tiny, mincing steps, effectively hobbling them. While it was never outright banned, public transit companies in cities like New York and Los Angeles had to modify their streetcars, adding extra steps, because women literally couldn't lift their legs high enough to board. It was fashion so restrictive it forced infrastructure to change around it. 44. Cambodia. 1975–1979. Under the Khmer Rouge regime in Cambodia from 1975 to 1979, all signs of individuality and intellectualism were brutally purged. This extended to clothing. The entire population was forced to wear the same uniform, a simple, black, pajama-like outfit. Any deviation, any color, any Western clothing like a t-shirt was seen as a sign of bourgeois corruption and could be a death sentence. It's the most extreme example of fashion as a tool of control, where the goal wasn't just conformity, but the complete eradication of personal identity. For 5. France, 2011. In 2011, the French government passed a law making it illegal to cover one's face in public, which was widely seen as a ban on the full-face Islamic veil. The NIQAB. Proponents called it a matter of security and a defense of secular values. Critics called it an infringement on religious freedom. Whatever your stance, it's a fascinating and controversial modern example of the state legislating a single, specific piece of clothing, turning a personal and religious choice into a matter of national debate and criminal offense. 46. Ancient Sparta. Clothing was a tool for brutal social engineering. Young Spartan men in military training were intentionally given only one cloak. To last the entire year, they had to endure freezing winters and hot summers in the same garment, a method designed to harden them and make them tough. It was a state-mandated uniform of deliberate suffering. While the Athenians were debating philosophy, the Spartans were legislating frostbite as a character-building exercise. For 7. Louisiana. If you happen to be a beekeeper in Louisiana, there's a strange fashion law just for you. A state statute says you cannot wear a fake beard while tending to your bees. It's one of those laws so bafflingly specific that it had to be inspired by a real incident. You have to wonder, what went down? Did a rival beekeeper in a disguise try to steal some prize-winning honey? Did the bees get confused and agitated by the fake facial hair? We may never know the full story behind the great bearded beekeeper caper. For 8. Capri. Italian Italy. If you visit the island of Capri, the mayor once banned noisy wooden clogs for the sake of public peace, effectively making a particular type of shoe illegal. It paints a picture of Italy as a place deeply concerned with both passionate romance and quiet footwear. Somewhere, the rhythmic clacking of tourist clogs became an unbearable acoustic assault on civic tranquility, prompting official legislative action. That's not fashion policing, that's noise ordinance meets shoe regulation. For 9. Hianera Japan. Let's journey to Hianera, Japan, where fashion wasn't just a statement, it was a high-stakes intellectual game. Noble women at the imperial court wore the famous junihaido, or 12-layer robe. But the real law wasn't the robe itself, it was the color combinations. An incredibly complex system dictated the precise shades of all 12 layers based on the season, the occasion, and even the plants blooming outside. Getting it wrong wasn't a crime, it was far worse. It was a sign of poor taste and a lack of refinement, which could lead to total social ruin. It was a world where a fashion faux pas was a catastrophic failure of your character. All right, we've gone through 49 laws, and there's just one left. But before we get to our final number, it's time for the final verdict. In our opinion, the award for the single most unbelievable rule on this list goes to the law in Thailand against leaving your home without underwear. It represents the absolute pinnacle of legislative absurdity, a government that has peered into every corner of public life and decided the final frontier of control is what you wear under your clothes. An unenforceable, unprovable, utterly bizarre law that raises more questions than it answers. Do you agree with our verdict, or did another law deserve this dubious honor? Let us know your pick in the comments. And now, for our final number, 50, United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, one man spent over a decade challenging the very foundation of all clothing laws. Stephen Goff, known as the Naked Rambler, believes it's his fundamental human right to be naked in public. For years, he walked the entire length of Great Britain completely nude, leading to a relentless cycle of arrests, court appearances, and prison sentences. His case forced the legal system to confront a simple, profound question: is the requirement to wear clothes a matter of public decency, or an infringement on personal liberty? He is a living, breathing, and frequently arrested embodiment of the ultimate fashion rebellion. Closing, 29 minutes and 0 seconds to 30 minutes and 0 seconds. So there you have it, proof that for centuries, the most dangerous thing in your closet wasn't a monster, but a government with way too much time on its hands. From ancient Rome to modern-day Southeast Asia, lawmakers have been obsessed with controlling what you wear, how you wear it, and whether you're wearing anything at all. But forget all these historical laws. Let's settle the one fashion crime that matters today: socks with sandals. Is it a harmless comfort choice, or should it be genuinely illegal? There is a right and a wrong answer. The comment section is now the courtroom. Go. And if you enjoyed questioning authority, especially the fashion police, you know what to do. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this with someone who needs to know their closet might be a crime scene. Thanks for watching. Stay stylish and stay legal.